Crown Prince in 2015. He wouldn't be happy with that position for long. But perhaps the most consequential development was taking place thousands of miles away in the US, where, in November 2016, Donald J. Trump had just won the US presidential elections. The Saudis and the UAE had been supportive of a Trump presidency after becoming enraged with President Barack Obama's nuclear deal with Iran.
We're just closing up the Qatar World Cup controversy, just like how they got the World Cup. And it seems like a little nebulous to me. I'm like, I wonder if there were some background deals between the United States, Russia, and Qatar, because those are the guys with the last 3 World Cups.
Yeah, but the thing is, I wouldn't say that the United States was involved in that deal. I'm
starting to wonder. I didn't wonder before, but I am wondering.
Well, they wanted to host the 2022 World Cup. And keep in mind that the U.S. actually served as a backup in case Qatar or even Russia wasn't able to, finish their commitments to hosting the World Cup. And the thing is that, the World Cup in Qatar, I'm gonna call it Qatar. It's odd. If you think about the complexities of it, the fact that we have to change the schedule from the summer to the winter, forcing this whole country to build stadiums like crazy, and and there's been a lot of controversy, behind but them bringing workers from overseas and essentially kind of treating them like slaves, taking away their passports, and a lot of human rights violations there. That's a lot of controversy.
I don't want to shy away from that. I mean, they have an image on WAPO Wonk blog, WAPO Street, Washington Post, of the amount of people who've died in Qatar and helping to build this. It's unprecedented compared to London 2012 Olympics, Vancouver 2010 Olympics, 2010 South Africa World Cup. It's just like, it's on an unimaginable scale. Let me see if I can pull this up and make a little adjustment here on my screen so people could see the graphic of what I'm dealing with. And boom. Wait, no, where's boom? Let's pull that up. Yes, there we go. All right. So now chat can see it. It's something ridiculous. Very hard to look at this World Cup without having those thoughts in mind. Like, I'm going to watch this World Cup. I'm going to enjoy the games, but I'm also going to be aware and cognizant of what the goal is here for Qatar. Qatar is trying to integrate itself with the wider world. There are a nation that has been third world for a long, long time. Come 1900s, they get a hold of oil and the bag, and they're growing with that, and they're trying to grow into a first world nation. And in order to become a part of the first world nation, I think that they are going to have to make a few more concessions in a few more areas that they seem to be uncomfortable with. And maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this opens the door for that. Maybe that's like the good thing here with having the World Cup in Qatar. But there's certainly a lot of negatives. Like, and we were mentioning that Qatar having problems with gay people, specifically Iran executing girls for taking off their hijabs, and we're playing Iran in a few weeks. Just to recap from the Frozen. But DPG, it's immense what we have to deal with this going into this World Cup. It's unlike any other. We have so much more politics creeping in than ever before.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. Is you look at past World Cups. They've been hosted by a lot of places that not only do they offer a World Cup, they also offer places you can go visit, and kind of a touristy attraction. And you had Korea and Japan, you had, obviously you have your Germany, and you have, Brazil, and, I guess to a certain extent, even Russia. But, you also have places like South Africa, that was different, but it worked.
I mean, their president was in jail, the famous president, and the apartheid. South Africa's had enormous amounts of problems. It's so, I mean, like, But
that's changed. That's been in the past.
Changed. And did sports go to help change that, or did marketing and go to change that in movies? Like what? The power of sports, though, is undeniable, and I think that Qatar has really realized the power of sports. A lot of these other nations are, unlike the U.S., they use soccer as a bit of their economic force.
And this is one of those situations too, is that, wherever the World Cup gets hosted next after 2026, there's some things to think about here. I mean, is FIFA gonna let a first world country host the World Cup that's able to deal with all the influx of people, that have the right infrastructure, that have the stadiums, or are they gonna pick someone random and then put them in a situation where they have to build up their infrastructure, where they have to build up 8-10 stadiums to you know to manage this World Cup? I personally feel that at this point, FIFA should probably stick to countries that can handle the infrastructure, that have the stadium capacity and all those sorts of things, or someone that, okay, maybe they might not have the stadium, but they have the capabilities of certainly capabilities of building up stadiums.
They got the jobs, they got the able people, and I'm talking like transportation, food, hospitality. You got to have staff, and you have to have also these facilities ready to go. And Sochi Olympic, those places were not ready, and they still weren't ready by the time they left Sochi Olympic Village. In some places, you were getting these horrific pictures, and it didn't. I don't know if it used to be that way back in the 80s and in Barcelona, Barcelona Olympics and some of the other ones in the 90s, or Atlanta. Atlanta seemed to be Atlanta had a bombing in it for their Olympics, right? So I mean, that's kind of nuts.
So
it's hard to hold these events, but I think that there's reasonable expectations, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's like, imagine having the World Cup in a place like, I'm gonna use this place as an example. Imagine if, I think, a place like, man, I mean, I don't want to, just put anyone down or anything like that, but this is an example. Imagine if you pick some random place in the world, some third world country in the world, and say, hey, you're hosting the World Cup. Can you imagine like the kind of pressure that country's gonna feel? Like, oh my God, I gotta, build up all these stadiums. I gotta improve my infrastructure and all of that, and I gotta hire people, and and thankfully FIFA actually does a vetting process, so I don't think it will ever come down to that. But the situation with Russia and Qatar, that was very questionable. When I found out about that, I was like, wait, what? And I like I said, it's one of those things where I think from this point on, after all the corruption scandals and everything, I think FIFA at this point on, will make smart decisions on who hosts the World Cup.
We hope so, but I mean,
so.
money talks, and it seems like
money talks.
When they talk about like separating gifts and separate, that's it's unfortunate, but like, I mean, I'm thinking in my head, like, how would any other country, every other country really think like they didn't have to include like a box of muffins and send that to like the FIFA advisors? Like, I think you do have to do that, but like the question is, how much is too much? And there is definite line that was crossed with some of these payouts. A lot of these officials that made Qatar happen no longer in FIFA.
Exactly. A lot of those guys went down with the whole FIFA scandal, and
they paid the price.
For a time, it almost seemed like they were going to pull away the World Cup from Qatar.
Well, and speaking of that, chat's saying that in Qatar, the kafala system it consists of taking away passports. It's very much a standard practice out in the Middle East, and this creates huge amounts of corruption. That sounds ridiculous.
That's just the tip of it. Like, from what I've read and I researched, so the way that they go about this is that they actually have people out in places like India and Pakistan and third world countries that say, hey, come work with us, we'll pay you this, a set amount, right? Correct. And the guy will be, obviously people will be like, oh yeah, I make more over there than I do here, so of course. So they go to Qatar, and the first thing that they do is take away their passports. They cram them into some sort of like living environment that's cramped. That from what I've seen, with documentaries, sometimes they have broken, plumbing. And on top of that, they're charged for that. They get charged for that rent, and you know, and I think they charge them for food and everything. And before you know it, whatever they get out of it's like less than what they agreed on. And becomes an issue where it's like they're either making the same as they would if in their home country, or they're making less. And it's not like they can just say, okay, I quit. No, they hold them to their contract. Like, oh no, you signed this contract. You got to be here X amount of time because you signed it. We're not going to give you your passport back.
Wow. That's. I mean, that just pisses me off as an American. I'm reading this tweet. This is a big one. Germany's Süddeutsche reports that the U.S. and FIFA President Infantino made a deal back in 2015. Essentially, the U.S. would receive the World Cup in exchange for ending investigations into FIFA Gate.
Well, the problem with that is a lot of it had to do. The U.S. government was the one that was investigating it, not U.S. soccer had nothing to do with that. I don't know how much pull FIFA has with the U.S. government, considering that soccer is not a big sport, here in the States. I don't want to. If anything, the U.S. I think the U.S. Department of Justice pretty much cleared out cleared out the whole FIFA hierarchy starting with Sepp Blatter. So I'm not sure how true that will be. But it does look a little suspicious that we got the 2026 World Cup. But think about it, though. We're hosting it with Mexico and Canada. I mean, it probably would be a lot more suspicious if it was just us. Even though we're hosting most of the games anyways. But, yeah.
That is interesting. That I wonder, I mean, they brought UK, Mexico and US and Canada into that deal. Yeah. I wonder. I do wonder about that.
So, like you said, we're gonna enjoy the World Cup games for the games. Obviously, when 2026 comes, I'm gonna go out on a road trip and try to catch some World Cup games. Try to, I guess you could say, try to fulfill my USA '94 dreams of going to a World Cup game. So, yeah. On another note, I did go to the Fire Team locker room sale last week.
Ooh, I think you mentioned this, and you said you got some pretty decent loot.
Yeah, I picked up a couple of things. I was actually very, very surprised how many people actually showed up on that first day. I didn't think it was going to be a lot of people, but when I got there, there was already a line when I got there. If you guys ever been to the Fire Pitch,
I did a flush emoji because I'm showing this video of the tents and like the sleeping conditions. They've got like wooden pallets with some plastic slapped up, and that's like your hotel for the week on the pavement, on the cement. No security. It's absolutely like ridiculous. Sorry, I'm just looking at these pictures of Qatar. Sorry to interrupt. Go.
No. And then so there was a line. I was actually the guy that was pretty much at the door. Like the line was going from it was like 20-foot long line, I guess you could call it, from like the entrance.
Ooh.
From the bathrooms all the way to the front door. And then the line actually continued outside and it snaked around, the corner. So there was actually a lot of people. It was I thought it was very chaotic. People were just in there grabbing anything they could. There was a lot of stuff that was being put for sale, and I was actually surprised. But the big thing was that a lot of that stuff had the old logo, had the original Fire logo, and also had the Crown logo. So they're pretty much getting rid of anything that they probably can't sell or try to sell nobody wants. But you also had a chance to get some cool memorabilia. Like I picked up a canvas picture, which I posted on the chat, and also another thing too is I got the captain's pennant that they give before the kickoff. And the one I actually got, and I was actually surprised I found it, was Fire versus the PSG from 2010. And ironically, and this is kind of like, this adds to the kind of like the mystic about it for me is that was actually my second ever game of the Fire. That was like my second
Fire
game.
versus
PSG.
PSG. Wow.
In 2010. So yeah, and it was actually a bunch of stuff. I mean, besides that, I picked up a hat, picked up a Christmas ornament that they had with the old logo from the original old logo, a blanket. These blankets that normally would sell for 40 or 50 bucks, 5 years ago, they were selling them for 10. So, it was, you could get a lot of good deals. I actually, now I think about it, maybe next year I'll go. Hopefully they'll have stuff with the newer logo. But they had jerseys for $15, shorts for 10. So if you like jerseys, by all means, get yourself a jersey for $15. But yeah, it was pretty cool. Saw Jiggly over there.
Ooh.
He was the first one, and I did ask him, hey, you mind if I go in front of him? He's like, nope. So much for that.
That's hilarious.
A lot of, and it's funny, the people I see on the line were a bunch of like old school Fire fans, people from like '98. It was mostly a lot of older fans. But yeah, it was a good experience. I actually saw my high school soccer coach there that I haven't seen in like in 20 something years. So it was nice seeing him. But yeah, they did had autograph stuff too. Funny story is that they actually had the flag that they were giving away for the past 2 seasons. They had one with the Chicago flag they were giving away. They were selling a few of them with the entire team's autograph. And I was actually very interested. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get Shaqiri's autograph. But then I was looking at some of those autographs, and I saw Alaceda's autograph.
So it was loud. Oh, wow, good find, good spot.
And I'm like, this is not 2022 team autograph. This is like 2021. If Alaceda's signature's on here, it's not from now.
Nope. Definitely good spot.
So they had a soccer ball that was autographed by a team. I didn't bother looking. I mean, I looked at it and I was like, it's not. I don't know if I want to spend $100 on a team autograph ball. Especially after I saw Alaceda's name on the flag.
No, you want the Shaqiri one. You made the right call.
And they had jerseys of a couple of guys, but they had like guys like Campbell and Calistri and guys from like a couple of years ago, which I guess for the avid collector, aka Jiggly, that probably worked out well. But
yeah,
I
big Campbell fan.
Yeah. And because I thought about it, I was like, well, I already have like a 2017 team autograph jersey. I don't need one guy that, I'm not going to say he didn't play a big role in the team, but, I guess you could say his value wasn't as big as Shaqiri. I mean, not Shaqiri's or Schweinsteiger's, but I was actually going to buy like this giant, they had like this giant light fixture with the Fire logo, which I thought was pretty cool, but it looked pretty beat up. It looked a little older. And they wanted $50 for it, and it was kind of falling apart already. So I'm like, you know what? Never mind. I'll just I'll leave this here. And I thought about it, like, where am I gonna hang this at? So I stuck with the canvas instead. But yeah.
You'd have to get a case for the ball and like put it in the middle of your house and or put it in the trophy case.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the man cave, could get that set up on the man cave. Get that set up and maybe make like a nice little setup based around it. Turn it into a coffee table. Some fun stuff.
That's what I was thinking too. Like everything I bought was pretty much mostly for the man